are open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. On a dog and cat food, animal supplements, a wide range of floral supplies, nursery pots, ground cover and shade cloth, and much more. We also stock a wide range of motor vehicle supplies, including automotive oils, filters for all vehicles, engine coolants, and much more. Email us today at cubano_1@hotmail.com or call us today 451-2911 or 493 7175. Cubano Limited. Top quality and excellent service.
WEFM, the new fresh sound.
WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
All righty, so we are back for another talk segment here on our Activated Mornings program. And today being a Monday morning, it means that our third co-host is here with us, Dr. Gerald Thompson. Morning, Doc.
Morning. Ha! What a weekend. Oh my gosh. Well, I tell you something. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm looking forward to the discussion. And all the folks listening, I know it's going to be a big morning. It's a big week. Nomination day too, you know what I mean? And I have to leave here and slip down to a particular location. But I got to go down Chateaubriand today.
We know you're trying to
No. If you know, pause a second there because it might sound promotional, but after the show. That's the point.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the nomination process, because I honestly don't know much about it. What time does it start? Where does it happen? It's like a central place and all that. Just tell us.
Yes. Usually is every constituency there is you could say a nominating officer, you could say, we call it that. And it allows for somebody who wants to run to come there and pay their deposit and give a list of the people who are nominating them. And they would have a list of names of people who are voters in that constituency. In other words, I can't go and nominate somebody North Windward or South Leeward because I'm a voter in North Leeward to run. Any candidate, whether for one party or for another party or independent, you can have any amount of people be nominated whilst they pay the deposit, whilst they have a certain number of people nominated them who are on this particular subject, and they have also given some indication of who the people are who are nominated them.
So
this is done by 9 o'clock this morning, Monday morning. The nominations will be open.
Okay, so it runs from 9 till a particular time?
9, I think it runs from 9 until about 12 and so forth.
And where does it happen?
Happens at a police station. That is it's going to happen in Chateaubriand police station.
Okay.
In South Leeward, it may happen at another location, maybe. I'm not sure exactly where it is. It's Vermont police station or something like that. But it's one place that you have to go to in each constituency to be nominated.
And is there a particular number of persons doing the nomination, like a set figure, like
yes,
6?
Yes, there's a set. I think there must be 10 individuals,
okay,
right? But you could go down there to the nomination with 1,000 people, but only that number of people. No, mistakes have been made. That you've taken down people, but you didn't realize they are registered in Central Leeward. And so the nominating officer will go through and say yes. The people who are nominating you are all legally able to vote and voters in that constituency, and you haven't made a mistake.
Okay.
And then the money you bring, you gotta make sure you have the right amount of money.
That's the thing. I know the talk was always 500, but I'm sure sometime last week I heard 800. I either read or
who knows?
heard 800, and I was trying to figure out if I was.
I'm not going to make any correction, but this is the deposit that if you get a certain number of votes, and there's a formula, you will get back your deposit. If you don't, like if you are an independent candidate and you've just say, well, I represent the Dianna Cain cultural party, right? You have to get a certain number of votes or you lose your deposit. You understand? You have people losing their deposit. You know, you could lose your deposit because you did not get a certain number of votes. This is to kind of stop persons from. In England, you hear people who are in the Looney Party, or in the people who are in the Alphabet Party, or they make up a party and they're doing it for fun, right?
Okay.
And so you reduce those nuisance type of things, although it's your fundamental right to be able to run, even though you're not part of a party.
Okay.
So
I actually never thought of that part of it, but yeah,
we expect at least 30 candidates, 15 from each political party, but there may be some other independent entities who may decide at 32, 33, and so forth.
Okay. And who pays for the deposit? Is the party itself, or the candidate has to come up with the money? I just been fast with that question.
Yes. Well, listen, sometimes there are some candidates who may not have that money. And so as a party, you would make sure that you have, it's like going to a wedding and the groom has to have a ring. You understand? And it can't be the groom's who has the ring. His best man pulls out a ring, but the best man says, boy, I forget it. I leave it on the counter, or I didn't bother to get it. Then the wedding can't go on. You know what I mean? So in a similar way, for nomination day, you have to make sure that you have to provide that money. I've always made sure when I ran that I had that money available to deposit and not dependent on somebody sending it down. No, it's not usually the party, but sometimes the party, for persons who may be more challenged financially and so forth, candidates who are more challenged, they make sure that money is there. Because if they are not nominated by that time and only one person is nominated, then that election in that seat is over. You have one candidate, only one nomination. They could declare that that person has won because there is no challenges to that person by the time nomination is closed.
Okay.
Understand? So I remember in terms of a nomination day, there was a big landslide in Rosebank. And I had to go down and take a boat and take the boat around. Left my car on jetty there in time, but my team was waiting for me. And we were able to go and do nomination and so forth.
Okay.
Within the time.
So yeah, almost in
No, it wasn't almost. Yeah. It wasn't almost. Because listen, even if I climbed landslide and walked and so forth, last night I was out at Bayaboo and I park up just past Peruvian Vale Spring and I walk from Spring to Bayaboo. I walk for almost a mile, right, in order to get to the show. So Rosebank, I was fitter then. It would be no problem. I was still reaching time. The time was you're looking at me as wondering if I never almost missed it. It's like trying to catch a plane. You catch the plane, you know. Okay. You may not get there at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but you get there at 7:30.
I don't know if you said this earlier, but what's the purpose of the deposit that the candidates have to give?
This is true of any system. It's true of the British system, that the deposit helps to prevent frivolous persons in the nomination system, because after a whole set of printing has to take place, you have to print the names of all those people who are nominated. And so if somebody's doing it for fun, well, their name will be printed, but they may not do any campaigning. And especially if they have a name similar to somebody else, it can be confusing. And that's happened, people put in candidates with somebody of a similar name, like let's say Jones or Brown or John, and therefore the persons who are voting can get confused as that. So, in order to,
I don't understand that. I don't understand.
Okay, there is fundamental freedom that if you want to run as an independent candidate, right, you could do so. The parties will put up their candidates after careful consideration. You as an independent individual could also run. You could go and be nominated. But everybody who gets nominated, the whole electoral process is fairly costly. The printing and all that has to take place, so that they ask you for a deposit. The deposit is not $1 million and all this other stuff. As I really used to say, whether the deposit is $500 or deposit. I remember when I was doing, I think that deposit was $100, so that they can scale it up a little bit to 500. Whether it's gone to 800, I'm not sure, but it is there really to show that the person who is looking to run is serious about running, right?
Okay.
And of course, the revenue is small, but that deposit is not necessarily used in the electoral process. That's an independent body. But if you get enough votes, a certain percentage of the votes, you will get your deposit back. If you don't, what we call about people who've lost their deposit, you should heckle some people, because some persons, in 3 races, 4 races, they lost their deposit because they didn't get in. Their family didn't even vote for them. You understand?
That the money that person's lose. Where does it go though? To Treasury? Where does it go? It
gets confiscated, and it goes typically to the consolidated fund. Yeah.
Okay. All righty.
Because if you should recall, the majority of the electoral process is paid for by special independent funds given to the electoral. The electoral office is an independent entity, just like the judiciary and so forth. These things are funded in the budget, so they get a certain amount of money to run an election campaign.
Okay.
And the whole registration the registering officers, the whole process, the people, to pay the people who will be there in each polling station on election day, they have to pay those people. And the electoral office basically does that. But I don't want to get the impression that deposit does that. The deposit usually is returned about 30 days or so after the election takes place.
Okay. All right.
So I'm happy. I always got my deposit back. Yeah.
All righty. So that's a little bit of information for those of us who didn't know much about nomination day in terms of what all happens with this particular day. All right. So let me see. We might be able to squeeze 5 minutes or so in this conversation. So we asking the question, is entering politics like applying for a job? Where does one gain experience without having the job, right? So I know that many of us, when we go for interviews, the prospective employer would ask us, well, what is our qualifications, or what are our qualifications, especially if you're going up for the very first time that you're applying for a job. And many times you kind of get the impression that they want for you to come with experience without ever getting the opportunity to even have a job in the very first place, right? So how is it I'm raising this and why we're raising this in light of the political season is because of an article that we read here on St. Vincent Times titled, James says Shallow is green and backward. On Saturday night, ULP candidate Carlos James delivered a scathing critique of his opponent Kishore Shallow, criticizing him as an inexperienced political newcomer, unfit to represent the constituency. James launched a multi-pronged attack, describing Shallow as a fly-by-night Johnny come late with no political understanding. Shallow leadership and criticism in his determination effectively disqualifies leadership. Let me see down. He says, you have a line with backward abundant for running this country's affairs. James is criticizing Shallow's association with opposition figures like Cummins, Lee Friday. All right. Now, interestingly, this is something that I've heard a lot, particularly from the right, in terms of commenting on those within the NDP who are up as candidates not having experience and saying, how are they going to run a country if nobody has the experience? So we have to ask, how are they going to get the experience if they are not fit during the season? Is this based them or put on them, knowing that it is a democratic process, and if they are elected, then they are going to gain this experience? My other question usually is, how many of those who are currently occupying positions, whether as ministers of God, becoming elected members? All right, so this is the essence of our conversation at this time.
Doc, what experience did you have before you got into politics?
You know, I think you all have the thing wrong. You see, if you take each individual individually, it's one thing. When I got into politics, right, you had already in the opposition, in the government at the time, Arnim Eustace, who was a prime minister. You had several other persons who had been ministers in government, and when they won their seat or they were, offering themselves as a candidate, they made the NDP seem as if they had some new people as well as some experienced persons. So it's that combination of new people and experienced persons that caters for change and caters for continuity. Now, as time in the last election, the NDP brought back a couple of persons who were, the guy Wiley. Was it Wiley or so? But you've seen over the years they have tried to bring in some of the older persons who had some experience during the NDP, still maintaining that balance. For the first time, there is nobody who has had governmental experience. Now, there can be experience in a parliament, but experience in government where persons have been a minister or persons have run a portfolio and understand the way the civil service works and so forth is something that you learn very quickly. So yeah, you're right. Ask me the question. I had to learn that very quickly. So I went in not really with a fair amount of experience at all, but there were other persons there who basically was able to bring that with the process. So I was able to learn from persons. So the new individuals, Darren John, somebody else, they have come to the party and they're linking up with persons who now have 10 years, 15 years experience of some old, moderate, and very new, catering for change and catering. And what has been said is that in the opposition, there's nobody with that governmental experience. They've had some experience in parliament, but no governmental experience in terms of running.
So given that none of them have had that experience, they should not be considered?
No, it's a factor.
And in answering that, then what or where does the role of the civil servants, the other civil servants, and the PSs fall into play in terms of giving them that guidance should they be elected into office?
Yes. I don't think during the time I was in politics that civil servants sat down with me and basically tried to teach me.
And what about the PS?
No, the PSs and so forth. let me tell you, you basically have to know your policy, what the party's policy and so is, so as to provide policy to the PSAs. As public servants, they're not necessarily telling you what to do, and you must then go to, politicians often fail when they just are given a paper and they read it. When they read it, they then find out something is wrong. They will learn from what is given to them if they have good people to provide them with information, but they have to know policy. They will read this document first and say, on line 23, what you've written down here is not our government policy. Is not what is
so then persons work hand in hand. There will be guidance provided because they work in hand in hand.
They work hand in hand. And so the point I'm making, you hit the nail on the head. If you don't have that experience for hand in hand, because initially you were telling me the civil service will tell you what to do. That is not necessarily hand in hand. That your initial question was geared towards that. And I'm glad
I said the role of. So if it's the role of, I'm not expecting the civil servants to be the one to say, well, this is this and that.
Put it this way, I'm glad you've come to that's a hand in hand. That you now have to have some experience and policy to be able to say, no, this is not the direction in which this government wants to go.
So in that case, with what we're saying here, then does the NDP necessarily need to have that previous experience if they are going to be working hand in hand with?
Can I tell you, over a period of time, and I got to say this, a lot of the people who might even be permanent secretaries and so forth may have their own political inkling. They may be thinking a certain way because they agree with the current government. If a government changes, those individuals, the new government is saying, but some will not. Some do not. So you as an elected politician, as a minister, you have to know policy, or the civil servants that question Roleza with it. The civil servants could lead you, some could lead you down a particular pathway that can be embarrassing to your government. The civil servants are great, wonderful, but you got to remember too that some of them also have their own political inclination. They might be affiliated to one party or the other. You know, Roleza, you may be affiliated to one political party. Dianna, you may have one thinking. You know.
Yeah, but my job is my job.
But and
that's the whole thing. I think too much. Anyway.
Well, it's true. And people don't know. Like I was telling everybody at the break, I would say I met Roleza's dad out at Bayaboo. And he said, who Roleza voted for? I said, what? You are Roleza's father, you should know. But guess what? I will ask her on radio. The other, who Roleza voted for? Now, I put the question to Roleza. I didn't ask you, I just mentioned your name. So I didn't ask you to answer that. Roleza,
who am I voting for?
Who you voted for?
As a person who thinks independently, I am listening to both sides, and my decision will be best guided on what I hear coming forward from both sides. That's how it is. I'm going to be voting this season. All right. I don't vote based on color.
Yeah. Well, look at that. And I ain't asking Dianna who she voting for. You understand?
Smart man.
You must smart man. You know that everybody. You could go and ask Roleza, what are you folks and so forth control the Joshua or whatever, Dave, what if you could do that. But I ain't venturing there. But I told Roleza's father I'm going to ask you because I think I know. I think I have an idea. I think I know.
All you trying to play Asman this morning? That's what happening. Only Asman truction enough to ask me on who it is I voting for. All you trying to play Asman this morning? Asman Maxman, good morning. All righty. So with that, we are heading on out of this segment. Yeah, it's just always something that's quite interesting. Whenever it is I hear that thought being thrown towards persons on the NDP side in particular about them not having experience. But we're going to head on.